Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Great to have you in on Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark is in and ready to go. Super Week winding down, but plenty of Super Bowl thoughts. NFL on our mind. Of course, Nebraska football. 2 more assistants. Got to meet the media. Coach Wager, the tight ends coach. And, of course, you have the young pup that folks are excited to see work, and that's Coach McGuire. We'll hear from them in a little bit. Some more offensive line insight in just a touch from Jeremiah Sirles. Get his take on things with Nebraska and, of course, Super Bowl 57. Brandon Vogel with us in about 20 minutes. Sirles going to kick us off in about 5 minutes. Hour 2, Gary Barnett joins the show. His perspective, making that jump from a high school coach to the college level. We'll get his take on that, and also to see if he's going to get beer showered this weekend at the Waste Management Open. And then a great sit-down with Husker Hall of Famer, 2-time Super Bowl champ, fullback Tom Rathman with us on the show. Numbers to get in today on Hail Varsity at 466-3776, 466-3776, toll free at 800-825-5865. Stream us, watch us live, different platforms to do so. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel, ESPN Lincoln, Facebook, and Twitter. And give us a follow on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Catch us on the way home 4 to 6. Damon and Andrew, mornings 7 to 9. Find me on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence. Connor Clark, we'll say it slowly, C_Clark_27. Almost as long as at Sirles71_HSKR. As he's in his Husker office to get us rolling. Sirles, the world traveler, my friend. Good to spend time. Thanks for a few minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to be back home. I've been on the road for 21 days in January. So it was a long haul, long trek, but good to be back here in Lincoln and Huskerville and settling back in before I head back to Minnesota next week and then Indianapolis for the Combine. Hey,
give folks an update with just some of the kids you're working with and just how things have gone that route. You've done just a great job from not only doing analyst work, you still do that, but also, of course, now representing kids trying to live their dream in the NFL.
Absolutely, yeah. So we had 4 players at the NFLPA Bowl. We had 2 players from BYU, a player from UCF, and then our loved only here in Nebraskaville, Adrian Martinez, the quarterback. We represent him as well. He did a really nice job out there. And then we headed down to the Senior Bowl. We had 2 players, John Michael Schmidt, the center from the University of Minnesota, and then Evan Hall, the running back from Northwestern. Both those guys had phenomenal weeks, helped themselves a ton, so that was really good on our end. And then headed back home and now getting ready for John Michael and Evan Hall are headed to the Combine in Indy and then do the Pro Day circuit there for the rest of the guys in March, and draft will be here before we know it.
Schmitz is a guy, we got a chance to sit down with him at Media Days, and if I'm a defensive tackle or nose, I'm not looking forward to try and get pad level on him.
Yeah, he's a stump. That's the way I refer to him. He's as wide as he is tall. He's 6'4", so he's a little taller than most give him credit for. But, man, he is just really hard to move. And you saw it down there at the Senior Bowl. He got put on the SEC squad. And those dudes from Bama and South Carolina and all them, they stood no chance.
Sirles, one of the things I've heard about this Senior Bowl in recent weeks, and this is kind of related to Trey Palmer's performance down there, is that what you see on the practice field and what you see on Saturday is only like 20% of what's actually going down at the Senior Bowl. There's so much more going on behind the scenes that's even more important than what's going on the practice field. So can you break that down for us, just what the Senior Bowl week actually looks like?
Yeah, for sure. We tell all of our clients, the practices are for the scouts, the games are for the parents. The game on Saturday is about as simple as it could possibly be. You got about 4 plays you're running. The defense isn't allowed to blitz. It's really is you're getting the one-on-ones of wide receiver, DB, running back, linebacker, O-line, D-line, run and pass. You're getting the individual drills where that's really how you're breaking down and watching how a guy moves and how he compares to the other guys in his position, right? And what the Senior Bowl is for is you bring a top 150 guys in that you can, and you start comparing and contrast them against each other. It's like, hey, if I'm going to look at an offensive lineman, am I looking at the center from Michigan, the center from Minnesota, the center from Notre Dame, and the guard from TCU that maybe can't play center? And you put those 4 guys up against each other, and then you start comparing and contrasting them during the week. And then also you have the meetings and the formal interviews that's going on during the week at night. Everything's a test. Hey, how can I break this guy down and put him up on the board and have him break down film? And what does he look like? How does he do things here, this, that, and the other thing? And it's just a giant evaluation period for an entire week straight. And then you get them home and they get a little break, and then you make them do it all over again in Indy, which is another test of like, hey, can they repeat what we learned at the Senior Bowl of like, hey, I got you on the board of the Senior Bowl. Do you remember that? Do you remember, hey, get up on the board and draw it again here 3 weeks later, So it's just all pieces of the puzzle that each team's trying to put together of the guys and the boards that they want, and each player's trying to just give it the best that they have. And at the end of the day, all you need is one team to fall in love with you.
Jeremiah Sirles with us. Sirles, let's talk Nebraska before we get to the Super Bowl. And you have, for the first time in a while, and we reference kind of your teams a lot because of how good your offensive line group was and just what your offense was like with, Amir and Rex. And you had depth, man. You had guys that won starting spots, but you also had guys that rotated in and, could play tackle or guard. So that's kind of where Nebraska's O-line needs to get back to from a ability standpoint. And you've been around the program, these linemen, and for the first time in a while, you're going to have pretty high-level competition with guys that have had multiple starts under their belt. As you look at this group, Teddy's coming off injury. Benhart finished better. Hunter Anthony's still here, and he's got college experience. That's just at tackle. Corcoran's played guard and tackle. You have Nuri that's back. Piper. You bring in Scott from Arizona State, who's played really well in a Power 5 league. And then you get the mountain in Mr. Hood from Georgia that's probably a little young, but 6'8", 350. I mean, so he's got the size and he got good enough head nods to get to Georgia. So you have that whole group right there, and there's a number of walk-ons and other kids on top of the recruiting class that I haven't even got to. What's the best skill set, in your opinion, that this group can have moving forward? Same O-line coach, new offensive philosophy.
Yeah, I think you got to see the way the guys finished last year. They need to just continue to develop on that. The way that you finish the year is how you have to start the next year in spring ball. It can't be this this complete rollover where it's like, I don't want to see these guys that have hit their ceiling. If they've hit their ceiling, then we're in trouble. And, I don't think that they're all necessarily, but getting Nuri back is going to be big. A guy that played well 2 years ago, but even he's going to have some rust to shake off, even come live bullets. Having Teddy back, but can he stay healthy? That's the biggest question for him is Teddy going to be able to stay healthy and play more than 3 or 4 games at a time, And then you bring in, okay, Hickson's gone. Is Piper at center? Who's at center? Is Scott at center? So that's a big position to fill. But I think that overall, there's excitement in the room. And when there's competition does 2 things. One, people either rise to the competition and they become their best selves, or they crumble under it and we never hear from them again, and good riddance to them. You don't want guys that crumble under the pressure of competition in just the room, because that means they're sure is not going to be able to do it on Saturday. So really excited for some real competition in that room, no longer just kind of like a clear cut. Where does Turner fit into all this? Those are all questions that are good questions. Because for so long, and even last year, we kept saying, we're 1 injury away from being in trouble. And then all of a sudden we were 2 injuries away from a world of big trouble, which would happen last year. So even just building that depth through competition and making sure that if there is a drop-off, it's not a disastrous drop-off from 1 to 2. It's more of a smaller gap there. That way you can still win games with backup O-linemen, because it's very rare that all 5 guys make it from start to season to end of season together.
Sirles, as this team goes through winter conditioning, when you look at the offensive line, how close do you think from a body composition point of view is this offensive line to being where Coach Rilo and Coach Rule want them to be, based on what you saw at the end of last year and what you've heard from those guys through pressers and just how Donnie likes to coach that offensive line?
Yeah, I think everyone can always get bigger, faster, stronger. That's a part of the ceiling thing. If you've hit your peak in the weight room, then, well, you should be in the NFL. If you're in college, you should always be getting bigger, faster, stronger. I think that there's still some lower body things that really need to go going. These guys is part of why Teddy's gotten injured. Turner's got some lower body strength that I'd like to see out of him. I think of a guy like last year, you saw kind of a growth in body size from Henry Lutovsky, not as much play size, but he got bigger. But you bring guys in from other programs too, from Georgia and from Arizona State. They bring in a little bit of what they've had and what they've done with them. And so now you just kind of hope that they can bring in that body comps from that position too, of like, hey, I played in Big Ten football or a Power 5 football. Like, you got to be able to bench more, back more, whatever it is. And you start just kind of get a conglomerate of all that. But overall, I want to see more of these guys just be more brute strength. That might be some more functional movement stuff of firing out of their hips, and be able to move guys off the line of scrimmage, not as much just like upper body, shoulder, vertical, jump, front, jump, sprint. That's not how offensive linemen are made. We're very much a functional movement position.
Jeremiah Sirles is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jeremiah, since you were in that position of the players are right now, you mentioned carrying that momentum from last year over to this year. How real is that for a player mentally?
First of all, Connor, fantastic radio voice. My goodness.
I know, I'm jealous.
He's been hammering Marlboro since he's 4.
Wow. This dude just comes on here and it's like, all right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. But no, so you're absolutely right, dude. The momentum piece coming from last year to this year is big, because you can have good momentum and bad momentum. The fact that we won our last game is big. It's huge for just morale. But then you get a new coaching staff, and I think that the excitement level of a new coaching staff can really boost that momentum too. Because sometimes just a slight change in the monotony of the day and the monotony of winter conditioning, like just the slight change can breed excitement and like, man, I'm excited to go because I don't know what today may hold. Versus when you're under the old regime of what Coach Frost and those guys had, like you kind of knew what you were walking into, and you can kind of get the idea of the definite understanding. It's like, we've done the same winter conditioning for the last 4 years and we've only won 4 games. Why are we still doing this? Versus now it's like there's a change in winter conditioning, a change in the meeting schedule, a change in nutrition, or whatever it might be. And so you really buy in and you go all into that change and embrace that change, because you never know where that change could lead. It could lead to an 8-win season, 9-win season, 10-win season. Like, that's what you have to believe as a player. You have to believe, why am I doing this? It's to win more games than we did last year. So I think that momentum coming off of last year with a win, going into the excitement of the coaching change, can go a long way for this football team.
Super Bowl 57, I know where your heart is with Philly, and there's not a lot of love for Philly, Sirles. Kansas City, a rival when you were playing with the Chargers. That said, tell me what happens on Sunday.
I think Philly wins, and I'm actually cheering for Philly. Because, Philly's at least on the East Coast, so I don't have to hear those fans versus a Kansas City fan.
So you are cheering for Philly, my God.
I'm not cheering for Philly. I just don't want to hear Kansas City fans. Like, again, if the stadium collapsed on itself, woo! But as far as, like, you have to hear the Kansas City fans around here more. The fans are like, oh, I've been a Kansas City fan my whole life. It's like, oh, yeah? Who was Priest Holmes? Tell me who Priest Holmes was.
Don't bring that name up here.
Where were you in 2012, Chiefs fan, huh?
Right. Yeah. Where were you at then? You remember when Chase Daniels used to be your quarterback for like 2 or 3 games? Yeah. You remember all that? Yeah. No, they don't. They just say they are. They're annoying. But Philly wins based on that defense. If I'm looking at my X's and O's hat, I look at Philly's defensive line, and you go from bottom to top, and you go, yeah, your 2s could be starters on most teams. Mm-hmm. You're talking about guys Sue, Linville Joseph, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. I mean, Riddick, who led the league, and then they lost Sweat, but I don't know if he's going to be back. But, you just look at what the pass rusher's there, and then you talk about a Mahomes that's not going to be 100%. There's no way he's 100% off a high ankle in 2 weeks. He's going to be better than he was, but the ability to go after him, I just don't see them being able to just run around and create the way he's been able to.
Speak to Sue and perhaps his sunset moment and how he tends to crank it up in big games.
Well, also, he's a genius, right? It's like, hey, let me not do training camp. Let me not do OTAs. Let me not do any of this. And then let me just find a team that's going to be a contender and needs a pass rusher and a good defensive lineman. I'll just jump on there, right? I mean, it's a genius move by a veteran. So, I mean, he has a lot in the tank. And that's why they went and got a guy like Sue, because they know he's got a lot in his tank. He's an older guy, so he can't do the full 18-game grind anymore. But when you need him in a big moment, he's still got it. He still has that juice. So having a guy like that on your team that, has won one before as well, that's the other thing. A lot of the guys on the Eagles defense especially had won one a few years back. They know what it's like to be in these big games. So, you have that guy who's the veteran in the room, also as a role player. Man, that's something special. It's not something you don't see on most Super Bowl teams.
Sirles, we're going to get a fan question here before we say goodbye. And this is from our dear friend Brennan. Have you got some arrows in here this offseason?
Not yet. I need to. I'm looking at maybe upgrading the bow. I have a Hoyt Double XL right now. I'm looking at maybe getting the new Hoyt RX. So I think I might upgrade the bow this year, upgrade the setup. But I haven't got any fling yet. I'm going to start here sooner rather than later. But I also have the new baby coming in April. So I don't know if any turkey hunting is going to happen for me this year either. So I might just be in a holding pattern.
Well, I know Brennan's going to let you know next time you're out looking for a deer. South Dakota. He's with the South Dakota Mule Deer Foundation. I'm sure he'd love to have you up there. So I'll pass that along.
I'll go kill deer in South Dakota all the time. Someone just give me a call. Just let me know. I'm there.
Find Sirles. Give him a follow on Twitter at Sirles71_HSKR.
Quickly, Sirles, what's that Super Bowl spread look like on Sunday? What's the food situation?
I think Philly wins by 6.
I was talking food, but that works
yeah,
too.
okay. So Sirles.
Food. I thought you said spread. Man. I just instantly went to gambling. I forgot I'm not talking to Danny Burke here. No, the spread's definitely. I think the wife said we're gonna do some pizza, maybe some wings, have some friends over. Very simple. Keep it very casual. Super.
When you order from Lazari's, just make sure Carson Schmidt knows whose pizzas he's making.
Carson's working at Lazari's?
Well, we hope still, yeah.
Yeah. Love that. I'm going to have to heckle him. I'm going to make sure I make him sign my boxes.
That's so good. Sirles, we love you. Appreciate the time, man.
Absolutely, guys. Appreciate it. Go Big Red.
There he is. Jeremiah Sirles with us on Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Sirles for joining us. Jeremiah Sirles. Get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the audio, full show, or just your favorite parts. The full show video, Hail Varsity YouTube. Get the magazine and digital content, hailvarsity.com/offer. We welcome in managing editor Brandon Vogel with us at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Junior already throwing out his picks for this weekend. Vogues, thanks for the time.
Yeah, he is. I'm also technically parenting during this segment, so it could go way south.
Does he have a full
the background noise? Let's hope we don't fall off a chair or something. You got to play the hand you dealt.
Does he have a full bowl of macaroni to chuck at you?
No, we just got done with dinner, so that's taken care of. Maybe could have timed this better. So
I was gonna say what you're doing is you're raising a little sports reporter right there. Garret McGuire talked today about sleeping in his dad's football office growing up, learning the game. Junior's sleeping in his dad's football office, learning the game right now.
Yeah, and I got to say that part from Garret McGuire today I found pretty endearing. Him talking about that. And, him calling his dad nightly, essentially, who's head coach of Texas Tech, for anyone who happened to miss that. But, pretty cool. Because, Garret gets up there and, the immediate kind of question everybody had was, boy, he's really young. And, boy, he looks really young. But it seems like a guy who definitely has football in his blood.
A lot of football. And to me, you just wonder how's that respect and authority dynamic going to work out, because you're maybe a year or two older, or in some instances the same age as the room you're leading. And how do you go about commanding that respect other than through your actions? And I think his actions are pretty deliberate, Vogues, with how he's going to be able to connect. And that's a benefit for him and a lot of his staff. It's two sides of the coin. It can be a positive or a negative, the experience, the age. But from a connectivity standpoint, there's a lot of guys on this staff, including Garret, that know how the wheels are turning with today's generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that plays into his favor. You can hold people accountable at any age. And I think somebody like Garret McGuire is, that's important. And if you can do that, you can establish respect that way. It's also, just coming in with a new set of eyes, kind of the clean slate piece of it. And anytime you teach somebody something, oh, I didn't know that under this previous staff, and, not saying that the previous staff missed it or anything like that, it's just like, oh, it's a different set of eyes. They do it a different way. Here's something I didn't know before that helps me. Those things all kind of add up, and I think continually build trust. So, it's a bit different. I don't know that there's a lot of other coaches out there saying, hey, come eat Pop-Tarts in my office. But as a diehard Pop-Tarts fan, I'd be interested. I'd be interested at age 43.
Cherry or strawberry?
No, never fruit. Like, I'll take those. But,
I agree.
We're all about like the brown sugar cinnamon.
Yeah, come on.
S'mores?
I'm into the candy Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
No wonder Carson does not hammer the Pop-Tarts like he used to, because I've been buying the fruit ones
I like the cherry.
all along.
Strawberry's not that great. I really like cherry. S'mores is a phenomenal flavor.
Yes.
If you've ever had the s'mores Pop-Tart, that is one of the goats.
There's a vending machine in the basement of this hallowed building, our studios, and I think there are Pop-Tarts from 2 packagings ago. I think they're nuclear proof. They're well expired, but they're still for sale.
Well, it's got to be like Twinkies, right? They don't go bad. Like,
How bad could a Pop-Tart go? I don't know.
Brandon, the question
We'll
though,
find out.
I mean, sure.
Brandon, the question on everyone's mind right now, though, following that Garret McGuire presser today, is a question that's been on my mind for a while. Being born in 1999, does that qualify you as being a 90s kid? I know that the question was asked in a sense of, Garret, you weren't even alive to see the national championship games, but I'm a 99 kid. I've always told people I'm a 90s baby. Is that true?
Probably not. You weren't catching a whole lot of the 90s at that point, much less. Well, you definitely weren't cognizant or remembering much of the 90s. But as somebody who was born exactly 20 years earlier, who falls in the like millennial Gen X divide, this comes up in that context for me often enough. And I firmly identify as Generation X. So if you want to call me a millennial, fine. But I'm going to claim Generation X. So Elijah, Gary McGuire, do what you need to do.
You see, I claim millennial, not Gen Z, because I see all these Gen Zers like Connor with their TikToks and their music, and it makes me feel old.
I mean, just got thrown under the bus here, but I'll act like it didn't happen. Anyway, with Coach McGuire being 24 and asking about how he's going to lead a group of guys that's very similar in age to him, I don't know if you would agree with this, Brandon, but I think the approach, at least appropriately, would be to try and relate to the players as much as possible, because it's not often where you get a guy that's not a student assistant coach that is around the same demographic. I think that could help a lot psychologically, especially with some of these players.
I would agree. I think you've got to turn kind of, your perceived weakness, if it's even that, or perceived kind of ambiguity, for lack of a better term, into a strength, and use that to your advantage. Because you know what, you can behave like a 52-year-old coach right now, and Garret McGuire strikes me as somebody who's going to put the work in, and there's no substitute for experience, but there's also perhaps no substitute just for the way you're able to connect, given the proximity to a younger group of players. So use that piece of it. Like, as long as those guys respect you and know that you're the head coach, even if in the case, maybe you're only 2 years older than me, that's really all you have to establish. And I'm quite confident, given the experience he's had and exposure he's had to coaching, he'll be able to do that.
Brandon Vogel with us, few minutes, Hail Varsity Radio, at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Vogues, could the sneaky staff home run hire be Coach Wager? I was super impressed with him today. Obviously, the Texas connection, but I love as he talked about, we'll hear about it in about 10 minutes, but the other side of the office desk, right? He's been the last 25 years been on the other side of that office desk when recruiters have come in to his program, come into his region. Now he's off to college, and man, he seems like a guy that can do work with the tight ends, but special teams is his big deal as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Sorry, Max has a lot to say on this topic as well. No, I think you're right. Like we've had, we saw how it worked out for Joey McGuire at Texas, kind of a pretty similar spot in terms of his history coming in. And I think that's possible here too. You look at those ties to Texas and getting that back going for Nebraska. I've never been somebody who's looked at the move to the Big Ten. Like, I understood how that probably meant less Texas recruiting naturally, but I didn't think it had to mean what it has meant to the degree that it has. So getting back in there and, just hearing other people talk about him, like it's the real deal in terms of his connections in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it instantly, I think, gives Nebraska credibility there. And if we see a bunch of good players out of there and, we'll see what happens with the tight ends, what happens with special teams, which, he said is going to be a collaborative approach, but I think he's going to have a pretty big hand in that. It's something he cares about a great deal. In terms of kind of sneaky best, wouldn't surprise me if that came to pass.
Brandon Vogel's with us here at Hail Varsity Radio. And Brandon, one of the things that Coach Wager said today is, little guy makes an appearance on the StreamYard. You can check out the video stream, Hail Varsity's YouTube page, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter page, ESPN link in Facebook and Twitter as well. You can check out the video feed. What a cutie you got there. But Brandon, one of the things he said today was the fact that, he's wanted to be a college coach for a while now. He's been waiting for the right opportunity, waiting to make that leap. And he said, when Nebraska comes calling, you don't say no. That's been a consistent theme we've heard from this coaching staff from multiple assistants, is when Nebraska comes calling, you don't say no. Well, what does that mean to you in terms of Nebraska's place in the national relevancy of college football?
It means he's not 24 to start with, which, I think you saw with his answer to that. He's somebody who's coached for a long time at the high school level and remembers Nebraska as the way all, I think, Husker fans hope Nebraska will be remembered going forward with kind of a new era, a level it can get back to. But, it's still a great job that has resonance for people in football. And that's good. You want that. It's important. And we'll see how that continues going forward. But it's good to hear, I think, that's a name that still has, still resonates with football people because, well, let's face it, the past 10 years plus for Nebraska have shaken the people who have the most faith in that, which is Nebraska fans.
Vogue's about 90 seconds, Super Bowl 57. We asked Sirles, so we're going to ask you, what's the food setup look like and who wins, Philly or Kansas City?
Yeah, so on the food setup, I'm reluctantly, most years I kind of say, it's just not worth the effort. It's too tough to do at home, but I'm going to try to conquer Wing Mountain again. So
right.
Procured the wings, gonna go that route and see if we can actually come up with something I like here at home without frying them. Not that I'm opposed to frying, but I just want to deal with all that. So we'll be doing a grill/smoke combo on those wings. In terms of the game itself, I'm not the closest follower of the NFL, but looking at the point spread there, last I saw, Chiefs were getting a little bit on the line. I'm all about that. I look at these two teams and say, should be fairly close game most of the time. But you look at who could win big here if the game were to go that way, and I think that's the Chiefs more so than the Eagles. So I'll take Kansas City and ride with the Chiefs, I guess.
Vogues says Chiefs. We expect you to be that guy. We need you to tweet out photos of your wings on Sunday, or at least send them to us.
Well, will do.
Vogues, take care. Give the little man a pound, and we'll talk to you on Saturday. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Brandon Vogel and Jeremiah Sirles for getting us kicked off this Thursday. It's Hail Varsity, presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Tom Rathman less than an hour away as we'll talk fullbacks and Super Bowls. Gary Barnett, that transition from high school to college as a coach, his perspective on that. Nebraska, a chance to bring out a couple of their new coaches, Bob Wager, tight ends coach, and, of course, Nebraska's new wide receivers coach. And we have, the topic of age has been pretty big with this hire, fellas. And to me, I think it's going to work in Nebraska's favor from a connectivity standpoint. I know we focused on it briefly with Vogues, but I think it can go the right way in that room. And it's all about relationships. That's been a big thing for this whole entire Nebraska staff. They've been on the same page with how they want to go about doing things, but it's all about relationship building.
And one of the things that McGuire said today when asked about his age, being 24 years old, was like, how are you going to command the respect of that room? And I'm paraphrasing his answer here, but it was along the lines of, they're not going to care about what you have to say until you prove to them that you care about them. And he's saying it doesn't matter if you're 45 or if you're 25. You got to go out and earn the respect of the guys in the room first. Like, if you're 23 years old and you earn the respect of the wide receiver room, it doesn't matter how old you are. Where if you're 45 years old and you don't earn that respect, it, again, doesn't matter how old you are. So it's kind of like the old adage, age is just a number. It's how well you do your job. So,
no, I totally agree with that. And his quote from Saban rings true. And there's some themes here. One of us, right? Mm. And, of course, the process. And, the process works if you buy in and trust it. And it's about the 1% and getting better every day. Let's hear from Bob Wager and specifically other college opportunities that have been there for him. He's been, quarter of a century doing really good things in the state of Texas as a head high school football coach. But it's been that Rule connection and the impression that Rule made in the recruiting world and what he did at Baylor that made it the no-brainer for Coach Wager.
Well, I think anytime you surround yourself with great people, and it's amazing what those good football players will do for a guy's career, and we did have a great deal of success, which offers and provides opportunity, but the timing wasn't right. Some of that was family related. My kids are older now. I've got a senior son. And at the end of the day, it's Coach Matt Rule, a great staff that I've had a chance and a pleasure to get to know in the last month and a half, and it's the University of Nebraska. That's different.
So when it comes to Nebraska, some more from Coach Wager on the opportunity here in Lincoln.
Oh, absolutely. Now I'm in my early 50s, and so my recollection of Nebraska football is, Thanksgiving night and being 15, 16, 17 years old, and there was only one show on TV, and had a tremendous amount of admiration for it. Our first trip to Nebraska, my wife, my family, and I, our two kids, tripped up here right before Christmas, had a chance to snoop around a little bit and go out to dinner, be in the community, check out some of the different high schools. So, yes, we did our homework before we made this trip.
The gelling part with Coach Rule.
Well, I just think, again, like-minded in regards to not only the development of the athlete, but development of the human being and challenging them to be the very best teammate, the very best person, the very best player that they can be. And that's right up my alley. I'm a character development guy. I want the very best for those that I coach with and those that I get to coach. And so most of our conversations were always about human development before they were athletic development.
So how's that door going to open? How wide will it open in the state of Texas for Nebraska? A lot of Texans on staff, a lot of goodwill with hiring Texas connections to the high school ranks. And Coach Wager did touch on that, cut 6 here with the Texas reception for this new Nebraska staff.
Well, it's been great. It's been a homecoming for me. Obviously, I've put a lot of years in there as their peer, and I'm still their peer. Guys, I'm always going to be a high school football coach. I just happen to be coaching at the University of Nebraska now. And so that aspect of it, the personal aspect of it, was exactly the same. But I'll also say that I think those coaches that are there, the high school coaches in Texas, the high school coaches around the country, when one of us has an opportunity to make a step like this, we root for each other. And so I was very grateful for the reception that I got from those guys. And then obviously I think anytime you come in and wear this brand and walk in with Coach Rule, it's a thrill for those kids and a thrill for the high school coaches that you visit with.
Last thought here from Coach Wager when it comes to his perspective now at the college level coming from high school.
I think certainly there's some uniqueness from a recruiting standpoint in the fact that I've been on the opposite side of the desk, and so I've seen a lot of coaches come through. I've seen their interactions with players, and so I do think that provides a unique perspective for me, and had a chance to learn a great deal while I watched that process happen over the course of the last quarter of a century.
So pretty good snippets there from Coach Wager with Coach McGuire. A lot focused in on his dad, right? Joey McGuire did really impressive things at Texas Tech. Really like his take here. Vogue's talked about it. Let's hear it here, Cut 17. He's calling Dad every night and getting the roadmap. Also, of course, being under Rule again, not only in Carolina, but now at Nebraska. And he wants to do right by both those guys that have influenced him.
So I call him about every night. Just, ask him for help. He's his best recruiter. I tell that to everybody. You see him, he goes out on the road by himself, which, there's a lot of respect behind that. And I'm just always trying to get his evaluation of me. Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? And that's what's so cool about me is I'm the son of a coach. So I spent 18 years with best coach I know. We were under the same roof, You know that, Max. You know how close him and I are. But so I'll ask him about recruiting, but mainly he just keeps going, talk to your players, talk to their players' parents. If you guys were down there 10 minutes ago, there were 6 guys in my room just hanging out. And I was like, hey, guys, I got honey buns, I got Pop-Tarts, come get one. Just sit there, hang out with me as I'm freaking watching tape and doing all that.
I'm there.
Connor is going to try and walk on as a wide receiver. How are your hands?
Oh, not good.
No?
How's your route running ability?
Also not
Worse?
good. I was a offensive lineman as a 5'6" freshman in high school.
You played O-line?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you're gritty with it. That's what I'm hearing. You can be.
I didn't say I was good. I
didn't say you were good either. I said gritty.
Connor's all about that extra after the whistle.
He's got
shot.
that want to.
I wouldn't go that far, but
Were you good at holding?
I could snap the ball pretty well. I was a decent center in middle school, I'll say that.
No high school center, or were you calling games?
Well, I was calling games junior or sophomore through senior year. Freshman year, I was.
So medical retirement.
Yeah, pretty much. Sure.
Connor, why don't you head up to the old camera well, son, and here's a headset.
Hey,
it's all right.
That was my idea, though. I wasn't forced there.
No, it wasn't a medical red shirt to clear scholarship room. That's what we're saying. We'll wind down this first hour. Hail Varsity continues. We're presented by Currency.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Busy hour 2 on the way. Gary Barnett in 10 minutes. And a full double segment sit down with Husker Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champ Tom Rathman on Super Bowl 57. His time with Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, and just his perspective, not only as a player, but also as a coach. 10 years ago, the lights that went out in New Orleans, he was on Harbaugh's staff. Elijah Herbel to my left, across the way, Connor Clark. Hail Varsity presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency, and remember to get buckled up. One of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an alcohol-impaired driver. Why take chances? If you drink, don't drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. A little bit more from Coach McGuire as we wind down. Let's get into that one of us, right? That's a theme. That's a brand that this entire coaching staff embraces, and what it means to Coach McGuire, what it means from the top down, and Coach Rule, the mindset required.
What numbers?
Sorry about that. That might help. Read my mind. Cut 20.
Cut 20. Here we go.
It's just a select group, right? You kind of lay down for the brand, right? So we got a lot of guys that have had a lot of opportunities to go elsewhere, but this is where they want to be. They want to be around this family. That's kind of my favorite part about being with Coach Rule is I like seeing Vivian Leona run up and down the halls. My favorite person in the building is actually Terrence Knighton's son, Jameer. I'd love to go watch him play basketball whenever I can get out of here, but no, that's just one of us. We have a brand, and that OOU shows up kind of every morning.
His memory of Nebraska football, probably a memory for both of you, was the 2009 Big 12 title game. Sue and McCoy, and a little bit more on that, what qualifies one as a 90s baby.
Obviously wasn't around in the 90s, guys. I know I'm a young guy. But I am a 90s baby. I'm 99, so I count. But honestly, my first memory is Colt McCoy versus Ndamukong Suh, in the Big 12 title game, because that was kind of a heartbreaker, obviously. But, I'm a Big 12 raised, kind of just being from that area. So obviously watched them, watched Coach Pelini, kept close with Coach Frost, and, he had some guys on staff that I'm close friends with. So, obviously always kept up with Nebraska football.
Man, that's a starting point. And last time Nebraska finished in the top 15 was 2009.
See, we're the same age, and I've obviously followed Nebraska more, but I think my earliest memory is probably there was one time that Mike Leach and Tech absolutely destroyed Nebraska, 70-14.
Oh yeah, the speed limit game, 70-10.
Yeah, 70-10. Yeah, I remember that one.
Ask Jay Moore about that game at a distance.
I was watching that one at my aunt's house. I remember that, and then also the Nebraska versus Michigan Alamo Bowl.
Okay, yeah.
Those are probably my two earliest Husker football memories. Distinctly remember.
What's funny though is Zach Taylor and who's the Kansas City backup quarterback? Chad Henne. They played each other in that game.
Yeah.
Henny's still in the league at 38. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're dating ourselves a little bit. That's all right. Gary Barnett, that high school to college jump. Thoughts on the conference expansion? Hour 2 on the way.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Hall of Fame coach Gary Barnett with us to get things rolling. Coach, what a good spot to be down in Arizona this week. Are you enjoying?
Well, it's actually a good spot to avoid if you're a local, which is I consider myself. You head anywhere down into Scottsdale, and I'm telling you, traffic is crazy. Restaurants are full. There's a lot going on right now, and so those of us who are here most of the winter, we just sort of hunker in up here and don't venture too far down.
So you're not going out to Waste Management at all this weekend?
No, I don't think so. I go about once every 3 or 4 years. I like to go watch the golf and not all the people looking, watching and stuff. But if you go early in the morning and you're there when they're on the range and watch them hit, and then you follow them around and then get back on because parking is a mess. Mm-hmm. And then you get back on the shuttle and go to your car about noon. You've had a pretty good morning, and then that's when everything starts to fill in. So there's ways to get around it. But no, I probably won't this year, although I've got a buddy coming in town he's going to go down on Friday. So we'll see if I get talked into it.
Have you ever been part of or delivered a beer shower?
No.
No? Nothing? Not even after a championship?
No. Never had one. So, no, sorry about that.
No, that's good.
Not very exciting.
Good for you.
I don't want to waste beer by pouring it down the drain.
I love that. Conservation, all right? That's the way to be. Well, there we have it. Gary Barnett with us. Coach, I want to get your take on the topic of goodwill when it comes to taking over a program. I know we've kind of broached the subject, but it's been a talking point with Coach Rule and just what he's done in state, what his coaches have done in state. They've hit over 100 high schools. They are going to be in high schools, as he says, 8 times a week, different high schools. Coach Osborne's been on a couple of podcasts and has really sung the praises of the work ethic and the evaluation. So there's that connection and thumbs up. And when you started out in Colorado, I know you were a high school coach. How important was it to you to have people that were at Colorado interacting with you, or at least the high school region? And then also when you went to Northwestern, I know you've talked about it a little bit, but who did you reach out to in the Illinois/Chicago area to make those connections? Talk about the local angle when you're taking over a program.
Well, when I went to Northwestern, I had hired 2 or 3, maybe 4 coaches that had recruited Chicago for years. So that really helped because they already had relationships created, and then they could take me into those high schools because I had never, truthfully, I'd never been to Chicago. So I immediately went out with them to do goodwill and to meet all the high school coaches in the better high schools, places that we would get players at Northwestern. You can't hit them all in Chicago. There's just too many. And while we felt like Illinois was our home state, we had to recruit all over the country. And so we couldn't spend the kind of time we decided not to spend the kind of time in Chicago or Illinois that we would have spent, or we did spend, in Colorado. It was 2 different scenarios, but it was critically important to have coaches who already had relationships there. And I did what I did in Colorado. I assigned every part of the state to one coach, and every coach had a part of Illinois, and specifically a part of Chicago, so that we at least had a relationship with everybody, and that they felt comfortable picking up the phone and calling someone. But in reality, we had to recruit East Coast, South a little bit. We went to California for the first time because we had strong recruiting ties already with our coaches that I brought from Colorado, and went to Arizona. We opened up Arizona, which was a good area for us. So that was different when I came to Colorado, because I had a background in Colorado, and I hired 3 coaches that had backgrounds in Colorado. We covered Colorado just like Matt's doing. We went everywhere. Every coach was assigned to the part of the state. And when you got guys from Colorado recruiting Colorado, they believe in the players from Colorado. You look at what just has happened at Colorado now. There's not one coach on the staff from Colorado. There's not one that has recruited Colorado. So all their roots and all their influence is somewhere else. And so they've spent all their time somewhere else. Now they're going to have to go out for the first time and meet coaches, because none of them have been in the state to have those relationships. So they're going to have a different approach, but it just comes down to who your staff is and what's important to the head guy. When Matt was at both Temple and Baylor, especially Baylor, you recruited Texas. It was very rare that he'd go out of state of Texas. And I'm sure at Temple he did the Philadelphia area and the Pennsylvania area as well. So he's used to that kind of situation. And so I think it's smart. But But in the end, he's going to recruit a lot of guys out of away from Nebraska as well. So, but it's part of the things I think people think you should do, and people in state think you should do it. And it's a good investment of your time and your money by spending time with the high school coaches and the people in the state that you're coaching.
Does that in-state kid give you a little extra oomph in your program? Do you believe that?
I think it used to. I think anymore it's not as probably as important as the people in state think it's important, but nationally I don't think it's that big a deal. I think that it's one of those things that you put on your list that's a positive,
sure.
And that is that we recruit the in-state kids, and if you don't, then it's on your list as a negative, and those things only become important when you're under fire and things go the wrong way.
Gary Barnett with us. Speaking of under fire, I'm sure you have a take on the reconfiguration of Brian Ferentz's contract. $50,000 is what's been shaved off the contract. Criteria set by the athletic director. What do you think of this with Ferentz needing to hit 25 points a game? How do you think Kirk's handling it?
Oh boy, I don't know. That pillow talk in that house has got to be pretty dreadful right now. I don't know. You know what I didn't like is Stuart Mandel's takeoff on that. I thought he was way out of line, and but he's got a job to do too. But you do what feels right where you are, and when you start mixing family into the coaching piece of it, it becomes very controversial. If things were different, you would never have this issue about nepotism. If he had scored 35 points a game, but now you got to find some reason to blame somebody for the fact that you're not scoring that many points, and it's obviously that it falls on Brian. So, Iowa is a different place, and it has a right to be different. So, I know Kirk. I have known him for years, and don't know him as well now as I used to. But that has to be a tough situation, and you don't sit down and make a decision like, hey, let's make a really bad decision here, right, and do this. No, you think it through, and you think it's fair, and it puts the onus on whether he scores or not. If they score, he hangs around and gets a bonus. If they don't, then he slides down to another position. It becomes a business at some point.
Gary Barnett with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, with the Big Ten scheduling, Scott Docterman has got a poll out there. We love talking to Scott, keeping with Iowa. But you're going to have your three main scheduled opponents, and then kind of do a 3-6-6 type deal for the Big Ten once the borders open up, once the West and East go away. And with the scheduling, if you're Nebraska, do you want one of the California schools as a permanent crossover? Do you want one of the Blue Bloods, Michigan, Penn State, or Ohio State as a crossover? And then do you want Iowa or do you want Wisconsin? I think you take Iowa as one, but the other two, I mean, it's going to be an interesting debate here. How would you go about scheduling it? You lived in the Big Ten, and now it's going to be a whole new world.
Until everybody experiences this thing, I don't know how you make any kind of prediction. I would say in Nebraska's case it would be just like it's in Colorado's case. Don't worry too much about all that stuff. Go find a way to be relevant.
Sure.
And then when you have enough clout, you can make some of those choices and maybe make some demands. But right now, just give me somebody to play. Let me go play them. Let me get better. Let me get a trophy. Let me get a significant bowl game. Let me get all that sort of stuff. I don't know how that's all going to turn. I think it's way too early to see exactly. Those two teams from the West Coast aren't in there yet. So, I think you just got to walk a little softly with this whole thing, and let everybody else try to figure out what's best for you. And right now, if you're Ohio State or Michigan, maybe Penn State, you got a little clout.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, Nebraska doesn't have much say in it, other than they're one member of the voting team.
It's about right. Do you worry about this being seen through? Do you worry about UCLA and USC, or do you think it's going to be okay? Or do you worry about their migration?
What, me worry?
No. Do you think something could pop up? Is my question. I know it's not been easy getting UCLA.
I don't think you rule anything out right now, Chris. Till it's done, I really don't. I don't think you rule anything out. So I think you just tread lightly and make your plans, put them in pencil, and see what happens. So it's crazy because it's still a couple of years.
So hypothetically, could the Big 12 win the lottery and pull a fast one, or do you think the Pac-12 could figure out a way to keep them? So is that what you're hinting at, or is it just who knows? With the World College football.
I don't know. I think it's just everything's too much still up in the air.
Sure.
Too much smoke. Hasn't all cleared yet. And I don't rule out realignment being a major issue still. I just think nobody saw either one of those two coming. Mm-hmm. Nobody saw Texas and Oklahoma leaving, and there's things we're not foreseeing right now. So I just say sit back, put your seatbelt on, enjoy the ride.
Gary Barnett, Hall of Fame coach with us, Hail Varsity Radio. So the Buffs, as we wind down, number one in the portal. And let's talk Coach Prime. What's been going on in the world of Deion here the last week or two?
Well, no, he's just he's doing what Deion does, and he's going to be on the Super Bowl show. He's people want him on there now. He's got a great agent and a promotion department, and he's getting out there. He's getting Colorado's name. Every time you even see him, he's got a Colorado hat on. We're relevant. People know about it. I can't go anywhere without somebody saying something about Deion right now. So, he's doing just what he needs to do. I don't know if you saw the study about the number of schools in the last 5 years with the most JC kids, but Colorado was number one. They've had more JC kids than any other school. I don't know what that means. All I know is I couldn't even get up one in school.
Wow.
When I was coaching, we couldn't take JCs. And now in the last, they've had 23 in the last 5 years. So, is there a cause relationship here, cause-effect relationship? I don't know. But Nebraska was like 5th or 6th, I noticed, with about 17. So, interesting stat.
No, JUCO can be feast or famine for you, man. If you get a Levante David, Terrell Farley, that's a big-time deal for you. And or you just get a guy that doesn't pop. So, Coach, we'll get your prediction now for Super Bowl Sunday. I think the line is -2.5 Philly. What happens here? Do you like the Chiefs? Do you like the Eagles? You've had a week to chew on it.
Root for the Chiefs, bet on the Eagles, but not a lot. Because it all comes down to whether Mahomes can move around. And these things come down to injuries and turnovers, and the injuries there's no way to predict. You look and see which team turns it over the most and gets turnovers. I think that's where your money goes. But we just all hope that it's a good game. As you know, we don't want another national championship game like we had with TCU and Georgia.
Absolutely, amen there. Coach, we'll check in next week. Thanks for your time.
All right, Chris, great being with you.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We welcome in Hall of Famer with Nebraska football, the greatest at fullback, and a two-time Super Bowl champ with the 49ers. We say hi to Tom Rathman. Coach, this time of year, got to make you smile. Thanks for the time.
Well, so it's a pleasure to be here. So anytime that you're getting ready for the Super Bowl, I mean, that's something to be said.
It is. I want to go there in a moment, but your position at Nebraska and also in the NFL, the fullback, Nebraska going to have maybe a newfound emphasis on fullback or H-back play with Coach Rule, and just kind of speak to the tone that position does set in the game of football. I know Nebraska fans excited to see more fullback play.
Well, I think with the tradition of the fullbacks that have been through that university, I would think that they would want to try to get the fullback, implemented in their offense. A lot of those kids were in-state recruits too. So, but I just think the fullback in particular, kind of brings something to the offense. Tone setter is really what I'm talking about. Setting tempo, setting the tone for the offense, and when you don't have one, who's going to do it? So, but I'm glad that they're trying to get him back out on the field as far as that position, the fullback position.
What was the mentality you had playing that spot? And I know you did it in high school, you did it great in college, and was as good as it gets in the NFL. What made your wheels turn, so to speak, knowing what your role was to be?
Well, really, I think what it was it was willing to do anything that you had to do to get out on the field. And I think once you are out on the field, then you got to try to stay out on the field. And I'm talking about making plays, executing your job, setting that tempo, like I said, that position does for the offense. Just, playing with accelerated vision, I think, is a critical factor. Understanding what's going to happen before it happens, so you can make the adjustment and you can execute your job. I think that's what really is what that position is going to bring back for the Huskers.
Tom Rathman's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Tom, you're a guy who's been around the game of football for the better part of 30-plus years. And I want to get your opinion. Why do you think the fullback has gone away from modern football?
I think, and the NFL has become a passing league. So, it's all about scoring points, obviously. But, it used to be had a run game, the people that were running with the 21 personnel, that's with the fullback and the halfback and one tight end and two receivers, playing with that personnel and being able to run the football. But I think now, it's more about passing. It's more about scoring. They don't really use fullbacks in college. There's not a lot of universities that are playing with that 21 personnel with that fullback. And I think that kind of hurts the next level. And then you see some of these coaches that are coming in, that are coaching in the NFL, that come from college, and they're those coaches that have played with 3 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers, eliminating that fullback. So I think that's a little bit of it. The coaches that are coming into the league that are new, that are from college, they're so used to seeing, no fullbacks on the roster, playing with receivers instead, tight ends and receivers. And I want to say this also, that, it's hard to find the fullback, just people that play that position. They're more apt to go over on the other side of the ball and play linebacker. They got a better chance of getting a scholarship. They have a better chance of going on to the pros, because of the elimination or the reduced number of snaps that the fullback position has been getting in the NFL and in college.
Tom Rathman with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, let's talk Super Bowl. And San Francisco had a number of championships. You were part of 2 of those. And what do you remember about that ride that was the exclamation point of that 2-minute drill with Cincinnati in Super Bowl 23. What do you recall about that experience?
Well, before I go back to that experience, I just want to tell you about the experience the year before. In 1987, we were the number one seed going into playoffs, and we were playing Minnesota at home. And they came in here and they beat us up and put more points on the board and, took us out of the playoffs. And, that really, didn't settle very well with our organization, with our football team. So, we wanted to get back on that platform of the NFC Championship game, the Super Bowl. Those were the type of games that you really make a name for yourself. And we were able to do that the next year, when we played in Super Bowl 23. That was the year that we were in the NFC Championship game, and it was 26 below wind chill in Chicago, and nobody thought that we could play in the cold weather for some reason. Well, Roger and I, obviously, are from the Midwest, both played at Nebraska, so it didn't play that part, on us. And, we tried to, tell everybody that it's not as cold as you think it is. And you don't need the extra shirt. You don't need a long sleeve. You'll be able to handle the weather, with just a short sleeve with whatever you're wearing. But that's what we were able to implement that year. And, obviously, in that 2-minute operation, there's nothing bigger than that. You're in the Super Bowl, 2 minutes left. You got Joe Montana as a quarterback, Jerry Rice as a receiver, Roger as a running back, and me as a fullback. And we played our 2-minute offense in 21 personnel. How about that? You're playing a fullback in a 2-minute offense in the NFL, and you're in the Super Bowl, and you're in the winning drive that takes you down, that actually captures that championship in that personnel. I mean, it was pretty special in itself. So was just glad to be part of it, and it was a heck of a ride.
I remember that NFC Championship. My folks had a membership to a gym, so we'd go there Sundays after church, and I'd play a little basketball, but mainly I'd watch football. And I swear that I remember John Madden talking about the Nebraska backfield not wearing sleeves. I mean, I would guarantee it. And you guys are just breathing through your face masks in that sub-zero weather. And, man, didn't bother you two. Craig and Rathman leading the way.
Well, I literally told guys to get their ass back in the locker room and take them the extra shirts off. They didn't need them. Some guys did it, and everybody from the West Coast, if you're from the West Coast or warm weather, they probably didn't. But it just mind over matter is really what it was. Not letting that cold weather affect your performance and knowing that you were going to thrive in it. And it really came down to playing pound. Running the football in that manner is what I refer to as playing pound. Mm-hmm. We were able to do that, and, it was a great feeling. There's nothing like it when you're going to the Super Bowl.
That win over Cincinnati is iconic, with one of the best Super Bowls ever, and makes a strong argument for the drama with it. And you mentioned that in that 2-minute drill, I mean, Joe just had time and kept the chains moving, Coach, where he'd check down to you, he'd check down to Roger, he'd hit Jerry, he'd hit Clark, obviously hit Taylor on the slant, but you guys just got the check down, would run over somebody and then get out of bounds. I mean, tell me a little bit about Walsh and his offense that was so good to the running backs, fullback and running back, with catching the football.
Well, and that's really what I want to implement here as far as or talk about is, Bill Walsh's offense. I mean, a lot of people didn't play their 2-minute offense in that base offense package as far as a fullback, a halfback, 2 receivers, and the tight end. Most people would go to 3 receivers, 4 wide receivers, open it up. But Bill, was strong, had strong conviction in that 21 personnel that we were able to drive down the field the whole way down. I think from the start to the end, we were in that personnel, and it was just the decision making of the quarterback. Obviously, Joe Montana. If he didn't have number 1, 2 going through his progression, he would check the ball down, and that was the one thing about Bill Walsh's offense was there's a progression quarterback has to go through, and he makes that progression, read 1, 2, there may be a third receiver, and then he comes down to the check down. And Joe was, very good at coming down to the check down, understanding that, I would rather have, 2nd and 6 than 2nd and 10 trying to force the football. So he was really the type of quarterback that was going to take what they gave us, and it worked in that drive in the Super Bowl.
And one of the guys that really benefited from the check down, Tom, was Roger Craig, a phenomenal NFL career, still somehow not in the NFL Hall of Fame. But then you look at a guy on Sunday who's going to be playing in his 3rd Super Bowl in Ndamukong Suh, and a lot of the conversation the past couple of days in Nebraska has been, is Ndamukong Suh making a case for having the greatest college and NFL career of any former Husker? I want to get your opinion. I want to open up the floor to you. Are you going to make an argument that Roger Craig deserves that honor?
I don't even really think it really matters to anybody, to be honest with you. The simple fact that you have a platform that you can play on that is at the highest level, and that's what you try to achieve as any individual, whether it's going 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, it really doesn't matter. The simple fact is that, you take advantage of your opportunities, and then you go out and you play the game, and then you go out and execute at a high level with consistency. That's really what it takes to win those games. You can't make any mistakes. And, we were able to do that, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 times. I don't really think that really matters to anybody. And I think, Roger is one of the most underrated running backs that has ever played in the NFL. Everything that he has done, the 1,000-yard rushing, 1,000-yard receiving, the first guy to do that. He was NFC Player of the Year 1 year. I just think it's a big flaw that he's not in the NFL Hall of Fame.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Tom Rathman, couple more minutes with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, what's the transition like from playing in the Super Bowl to getting your room ready for the Super Bowl? You were in Super Bowl 47 with Coach Harbaugh, and a real nail-biter against Baltimore where the lights went out in New Orleans.
Well, really, you were able to give advice to a lot of these kids that were playing. In that Super Bowl against Baltimore, the Harbaugh Bowl, a lot of the kids that we were playing with that were on our team had never been to the Super Bowl. So really what it was you were able to give them advice, understanding what the situation is. You were able to explain to them, the halftime is going to be a lot longer than a normal halftime. So you were able to give them a little insight, what the process was going to be. And I think that really helped them. And then you talked about the lights going out. That was one of the craziest things that I've ever seen. We were getting our butts beat the first half, and we come out the second half in that game, and they returned the opening kickoff from halftime back for a touchdown, put us in a bigger hole. And we were able to, do what we had to do to get ourselves in a position to potentially win the game. I think we were down on the 6-yard line, and we had 3 or 4 shots at the end zone, but we didn't capitalize on it. That was the one Super Bowl that I did lose, won 2 as a player and lost 1 as a coach. But you're just able to help them out, being down that road before, giving them advice. That's the biggest asset that you were able to have as a transition player and to a coach.
Excuse me, Tom Rathman with us on Hail Varsity Radio. That advice is worth its weight in gold to get guys ready. You've had a chance to keep in contact. I think I remember you talking about the Brady family not being too far from your neighborhood, and spend a moment here on Tom Brady and him finally hanging it up. What a pleasure it's been to watch him.
Well, I've known Tommy for many, many, many years, even, when he was at Sarah. And I actually have a picture of him painting my daughter's toenails here in California. So that's a picture that I'll never let go. And, he just, in general, Tom has had a great career. Nobody thought that he was going to be able to do what he has done. I think that's, a feat that, not many people can conquer. And he was able to conquer it. He's got 7 Super Bowl victories, and, who knows everything that he's done. He's got all the records and everything. So he's just been phenomenal for the game. Been a great teammate, been a great player. So you have to give him a lot of credit.
He's going to take a little time before he jumps into the broadcast booth. How do you think he'll handle retirement? And with you got into coaching after retirement, and it seems like you're enjoying retirement now. Is that a tough transition for guys?
Well, I think initially it will be, something to, fill his time. But I think I read the other day that he's not going to get in the booth until 2024. So he'll have a year off to explore other options, see what road he wants to go down. But I'm sure he's going to have a lot of different opportunities, to do whatever he wants to do, because he's got so much credibility to his name and what he's done, in the game and for the game. So I don't think he'll have a tough time transitioning at all. He got a little taste of it last year and then came out of retirement. So I think he'll handle it a little bit better this year than last year. And, it wasn't anything big for me. I had a grandson to come back to him. That's been the best thing that ever could have happened to us.
That is awesome. Tom Rathman with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, you get back to Nebraska much? Looking at making a trip back to Lincoln this fall at all?
I was back there for a game last year against Purdue. I've been back the last couple of years for one game, but I just don't get back very often. I get back to Nebraska maybe twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to get back as much as we can. So it'd be nice to get back, be able to spend more time, go to more football games, but I don't know if that's really reality.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll take the opportunity when I get it. And love to see the Big Red, get it turned around and, start winning in the Big Ten and, start getting these championships like, I thought they would when they first went to the Big Ten.
Mm. Well, you got to get back. Your old buddy Harbaugh comes to town, I think, in September.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had a conversation with some people from Michigan, and they actually want me to come out to one of their games.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
So the Wolverines want you to come out, or Detroit?
Yeah, to see one of their games. So, but I said, we'll see about that one.
Well, just don't wear any Michigan gear, and I think the Husker fans will forgive you.
I don't know if I'd go over too well with me wearing my Nebraska hat and my shirt when I walk in there.
You do it. Just show up. Show up in red, man.
Tom, before we get you out of here, Sunday's game, Eagles and Chiefs. I mean, I don't necessarily need a prediction from you, but, who are you rooting for? Are you willing to give me a prediction for Sunday?
I've got all my connections working for Philly. All the coaches, Nick Sirianni, they've got about 4 or 5 coaches on their staff that I work with in Indianapolis. So they're doing the same thing that we did in Indianapolis. So I know exactly what the offense is, and it's been, really cool to see that all develop in the last 2 years with Nick Sirianni being the head coach. He's done a fabulous job, and the players have really bought in. And he's implemented the same stuff that Frank Wright did, when we went to Indianapolis back in 2018. And it's good to see him have some success. And I would really have to say that I'm probably rooting for those guys because I know more people on that staff than I do Kansas City staff. So you always tend to root for your friends, people that you worked with, and that would be most of the Philly staff. And but they've done a great job, getting to the Super Bowl. Now, that's one thing that you don't want to do. You don't want to lose the Super Bowl because there's nothing more heartbreaking than losing a Super Bowl. I mean, you get there on that platform and you put in all this time through the season, through the off season, and then you get the one chance, to win that one day, that one game. And if you don't get it done, I mean, it seems like your whole season is a failure as compared to winning the football game where you reach the pinnacle of pro football, and that is to win the Super Bowl.
Tom Rathman. Coach, enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. Always love catching up with you. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Okay, anytime. So you guys have a good day.
Good stuff from Tom Rathman, Husker legend, fullback, Super Bowl champ. That Nebraska backfield with him and Roger Craig.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up.
With some Husker football as well with Sirles, Gary Barnett, big time as always when it comes to coaching and some of the moves Nebraska's made with their staff. And big thanks to Tom Rathman, pride of Grand Island, great player for Nebraska, and just an incredible part of that San Francisco DNA with their championship runs with Montana, Rice, Craig, and, of course, Tom Rathman. Podcast has the whole show or whatever segment you want to hear, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Subscribe, tell a buddy, and give us a review. We appreciate that. You can watch the whole show on video, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, and always check out and click on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Catch Damon and Andrew in the morning, 7 to 9. Hail Varsity on the way home, 4 to 6. Thumbs up or down, too much, or you can't put a price on. We'll get into this a little bit more tomorrow with Dolman, who spent about 5 years in the NBA. But Kevin Durant
covering
Phoenix.
the NBA, not in the NBA.
Well,
I'd have some questions in class.
Thank you. Covering the NBA with the Rockets during the Harden era. Listen, he's 34. He's got 1 billion miles on him. He's got knee. He's got Achilles. He's Warren Tor, okay? But he's still averaging 31 a game. And you add Durant to that Phoenix lineup, you got a new owner. New owners like to make their mark, so to speak. And quite honestly, in pro sports, you just don't know how long your window's open for championship contention. Phoenix is not far removed from a trip to the finals. Right now, Denver's leading the West. This is awesome. Now, they've given up every first-round pick they have from 2023, 2025, 2027, 2029. Bridges, Johnson, and Crowder as well.
And their young core, pretty much.
Yeah, their young core.
The Nets got a haul
They
on
did.
that deal.
They did. But that's the dance you got to do.
It's LA Rams, F them picks. Remember that from the GM?
Yeah,
in the interview,
pretty much.
He said a stronger word than that.
Do you like it? Does Phoenix make a run right now? They're the 4 seed. Do they put a run together and chase down your beloved Nuggets? And do they get it done to the point of improving their seeding and then finding their way back to the West?
Seeding's not going to matter. That's a scary team in the postseason. The question is can Chris Paul finally have a postseason where in the big-time moments he doesn't suck?
Well, he doesn't have to now. I mean,
it puts the Suns
can
back
Kevin
into
Durant,
the mix.
Yes.
They're in the mix, but can Kevin Durant stay healthy, too? That's been his problem since 2017. Has been injuries. Can he stay healthy? If he can, if Chris Paul can perform like we know Chris Paul can, at least during the regular season, whenever he's firing on all cylinders, they should be the favorite in the West.
Well, yeah,
I say that as a Nuggets fan.
You're right. Yeah, Booker. I mean, I don't know. I think it's. I mean, I think this is the move you make to put a run together. He's got the experience too. I mean, he's won rings, and no one else there has.
It's a championship move. I mean, at the end of the day, and yes, you gave up a lot for it, but like you said, you don't really know when your championship window is. This is the best championship window the Suns have had in a while. Might as well go for it.
Are you going to freak if Russ ends up in Chicago?
Yes, and not in a good way.
I didn't think so. There would be no party on Connors Street. Thanks for tuning in to Hail Varsity. Back at you at 4 tomorrow with Hail Varsity Radio.